Hello, and welcome back to Duck Reads. Today we'll be covering Chapter 11 of Watanagashi, which is Book 2 of Higurashi When They Cry. Oh. Sit back, relax, and let's get started. I saw a ceiling I was familiar with. Though I was groggy from sleep, I did notice that I was in my futon like I was every morning. I looked at my clock, and despite having turned in so late last night, I had awoken at precisely the same moment I always did. I'm so low on sleep, but I guess you really can get up at the same time every day. The secrets of the human body never cease to amaze me. If I went back to sleep like this, I would definitely not be waking up again. I spurred myself on and slipped out of my futon. Mom asked me about last night at breakfast. Apparently, we two had gotten a call asking if we knew where Rika-chan and Satoko were, and Mom vaguely understood that something serious was happening. So then, you were out late last night with all your friends looking for them? Until about 3, I think. Yeah. Did you find them? Rika-chan and Satoko-chan, I mean. Crunch. I wearily bit into my toast. It really didn't have any taste. Just then, we heard the chime go ding-dong. I looked up at the clock and saw that it was about 5 minutes past my regular meeting time with Rena. It was her at the door. Good morning. Did you get any sleep? Did you? I think I slept for a few hours. You could probably count them on a chicken's toes, though. Rena seemed pretty sleep-deprived as well. There was something missing from her usual spirit. Are you going to school? Yeah. I think it would be better that way, she said, smiling, albeit stiffly. Rena was probably worrying her heart out about those two as well. Even so, she wanted to go to school. If you stay home today, I think you'd just be worrying nonstop and sleeping. I don't want that. So let's go to school together. Alright. Wait just a moment. I'll get ready. I was just a little bit happy about Rena mustering that much consideration for me. We went to the place where we'd usually meet up with Mion, but she was nowhere to be found. We were a little bit late today, so we thought she'd be waiting for us. I guess Mi-chan couldn't wake up today, huh? That's right. For her, it wasn't just yesterday. She was up all night looking for the mirror the night before last, too. We waited for a bit. Time passed until it got to the point where it was okay for us to go on alone, and we exchanged glances. What do we do? Wait a little longer? At that point, my brain, which had finally been woken up by the morning air, recalled the ominous words Oishi-san had left me with last night. The leaders of the 3 families were disappearing one after the other. And next, it might be the Sonozaki's leader. Could Mion have... No, that couldn't be. Let's go. Let's let her sleep for today. Rena gave me a pat on the back. Mion, she's still here, right? Did you say something? Oh, nothing. Just talking to myself. Let's get moving. The 2 of us headed to school by ourselves. On the way, we saw a bunch of our classmates accompanied by their parents. It even looked like some of them were being taken to school by car. Surprisingly, the principal was also standing watch at the school gate. I'd never seen that before. Good morning. Good morning. The principal was bowing to our classmates' guardians. The wooden sword leaning next to him was a little ominous. Maibara-kun, good morning. Ryuga-kun, good morning. Good morning. Your teacher has something important to say, so head straight to the classroom. All right? Rena and I said nothing. The madness that only existed at night had finally crawled out into the sunlight. That's what it felt like. Good morning, everyone. The hushed conversations that had been spreading for a while now all disappeared like an illusion the moment our teacher walked in the door. Silence dominated the classroom. The principal came in with our teacher as well. This was clearly not a normal morning. First, the principal has something important to tell everyone. Go ahead, Mr. Principal. The principal cleared his throat and approached the dais. I'm sure some of you already know this. The classroom was dead silent. Everyone was staring at Rika-chan's and Satoko's empty seats. The principal briefly and simply declared that Rika-chan and Satoko had gone missing. There wasn't a single person in the classroom who didn't already know. There seemed to be many, however, who couldn't accept it as truth. It had been confirmed to them now by the principal's words. There were sobs throughout the classroom, and I heard a kid crying. They steadily spread throughout the whole room. The big-hearted principal wasn't able to keep his cool either. Okay, everyone, pay attention. From today on, your parents or guardians will be taking you to school. For those of you whose parents can't do so, you'll be coming here in groups. I made a handout, so read it carefully and be sure to show it to your parents. Understand? The teacher's voice was a little abrasive. Not even she could conceal the strain she felt from this unprecedented, abnormal situation. They should have just canceled school today. However, Rena told me that the school was also like a nursery for the students whose parents both worked, so some of them wouldn't want school to be canceled. Well then, let's begin the lesson. Class president? She's absent, I see. Then whoever is on day duty, let me hear it. All rise. The feeling of wanting to maintain an everyday atmosphere, even if only in school, precisely because our lives had been messed up, was something that I agreed with at this point. As for the teacher, who always had her lunch in the staff lounge, she ate in the classroom today. I had to laugh at her curry bento, which was just a rumor until now, but there was nobody to laugh with me. Rena brought her chair and lunch over to my seat. Today, it was only the two of us. The fact that we didn't need to drag any other desks over was sad. I'm sleepy. Yeah, I don't feel like sleeping anymore, though. In fact, I'm jealous of the people that could sleep at a time like this. They've got nerves of steel. You're right. I was sleepy this morning, but my drowsiness had dissipated after coming to school and constantly feeling the incredible tension. Rena's bento box didn't have its usual luster. That was to be expected. Rena was up for a long time last night, too. She wouldn't have had time to make her lunch beforehand, since it's not like she would have gotten up early this morning. Grab anything you want. Go ahead. You can admit that my bento is better today. Okay, then I'll have some. Wow, a chikawa roll with perilla and cheese? That's interesting. Think it's Paria? Rena, yours might have some ready-made food in it, but it's pretty good too. I realized the two of us were desperately trying to brighten the afternoon mood to its usual level as much as we could. I looked around the classroom, and it seemed like we were the only ones trying to do so, surrounded as we were by gloominess. Just the two of us sharing our lunches like this? It's sort of like something. How? Our laughter grew quieter. I was the first one to mess up. Sorry. I'm sorry. No, it's okay. It's not your fault. Our chopsticks both stopped moving. We couldn't keep it up anymore. Rika-chan, Satoko, I wonder where they went. Those words might have sounded too miserable. Everyone was thinking it, using roundabout ways to address the topic, but I came right out and said it. I heard Rena catch her breath. Yesterday, while you were gone, I heard a bunch of things, so I'll tell you what I know, okay? Sorry again about last night. Go ahead. At that time, since they had arrived for support, Rena was helping the Lady Society cook the miso soup we'd had. They reported all of the information the villagers had gathered, and Rena said she overheard it. They didn't know anything important, though, did they? Rika-chan and Satsuko went home after school, and then apparently went somewhere on their bikes, but other than that... Mion had told me yesterday. We had no clues. Yeah. The police also said that they probably went out on their bikes to go play somewhere as soon as they got home. If they were going out to play somewhere on their bikes right after getting home, then they might have gone into town. So I guess they concluded they disappeared while in Okinomiya. The police were saying how they were going to expand their search to Okinomiya in the morning. In town, it'd make sense why we couldn't find them even though we searched all of Hinamizawa then. Still, something didn't fit. I had no basis for thinking that, just a gut feeling. I revealed something to Rika-chan that was likely very important to her that day. Then Rika-chan had told me to leave it to her. And then, what did she say? Oh, right. If she didn't work hard, then something bad might happen to the dog too, I think. With all the talk of dogs and cats, I still didn't have the faintest idea what she really meant. But it might have been Rika-chan's way of saying this was a race against time. Damn it! I'd selfishly pushed my anxiety on Rika-chan and tried to run away. When I thought about it, I shouldn't have run back then. I should have asked her more about the dogs and cats. The more I think back on it, I really screwed up. Anyway, I don't think Rika-chan was in a situation where she would just go off to play somewhere. Of course, I didn't have any evidence or conviction to base that on. It was just a hunch. I don't think she'd go into town. You think so too, Keiichi-kun? I agree. Rika-chan and Satoko-chan must have disappeared in Hinamizawa. I looked back at Rena, startled. I could hear the conviction in those words. Without replying to my gaze, she took her bento box and went to the hallway. I'm going to go rinse this out. She timed that in a way that broke off the conversation. Suddenly, I got the feeling that the next thing she had to say would be hard to say aloud in the classroom. I hurriedly grabbed my bento box and followed her. Rena didn't go to the kitchenette, but rather to the water fountains out back, where students seldom went. The water flowed down onto our bento boxes. During that time, Rena didn't say a word. Then, after making sure there were no other students around, she finally opened her mouth to speak. The whole thing about Rika-chan and Satoko-chan going to town to play and then disappearing? That didn't make sense for some reason, so I decided to investigate a little bit myself. Who did you ask? What did you ask them about? I asked the Lady Society all kinds of things. There was a lot of tofu in the miso soup yesterday, remember? The old lady from the Tomita tofu shop came too. The Tomita tofu shop? Oh, I remember. That was one of the stores on the road leading to the hospital. Those huge lumps of tofu dancing in the bathtub-like cistern always looked nice and refreshing. The old lady said she remembers Satoko-chan stopping to buy tofu there on her way home from school. Tofu? Well, it's on the way home, right? How is that a clue? Just listen. Do you remember when we went to Rika-chan's house? Rena stepped away from the sinks and spread her arms wide to recreate the space of Rika-chan's room. There was a pot on her gas cooker, and there was miso soup in it. I think there was probably about half of it inside. The rest was in the refrigerator. They must have been planning to make chilled tofu. It was on a plate in plastic wrap. As Rena explained, she walked around, as if she were really going through Rika-chan's room. Still, Rena, why does this matter? Keiichi-kun, when you make miso soup, you put the tofu in last. That means Rika-chan or Satsuko-chan, whoever was cooking, was standing there making it up until right before dinner time. Right up until dinner time? Wasn't everyone saying that their bikes weren't around, so they must have gone somewhere to play by themselves? The trash in the countertop bin was put in there really awkwardly, too. Rika-chan makes most of their food and lunches, but occasionally Satsuko-chan does it too. So Satsuko-chan was cooking that night. So that means that Satsuko, at least, didn't go somewhere to play. She was preparing dinner? Yeah. Then I took a look at the rice cooker and there was rice for two still in there. So she made dinner for both of them, but neither of them ate it. Is that it? Rena nodded. So next I looked in the fridge. There was some chilled tofu made from the other half that they bought. That's not all either. There were a whole bunch of plates with side dishes for dinner, and all of them were in plastic wrap. You usually plastic wrap things so that you can have leftovers for the next day. My mom does that all the time too, using them at breakfast or lunch. That's right, you use plastic wrap to save leftovers for later. So the fact that they were in the fridge means that they didn't plan on eating them that night, at least. Is that what it means? Keiichi-kun, think a little harder. Their dinner was totally untouched and wrapped up. What do you think that means? Well, that means they didn't need to eat dinner anymore. So they would have gone out to eat or ordered takeout. It must have been really sudden, too. If they had decided to do that beforehand, they wouldn't have made anything, but there was dinner for the two of them. That means that when Satsuko-chan was making their dinner, they really thought they were going to eat it until right before they didn't. So then, the theory about the two of them going out to play and then disappearing is wrong. Yep. They disappeared after making dinner and right before they ate it. Probably around 7 o'clock. Where would they have gone at a time like that by themselves without eating? That's obviously where this is leading. Keiichi-kun, do you remember? On their fold-out table, there were things like soy sauce and a chopstick holder. There might have been something like that. I didn't remember. The container for the soy sauce, it was empty. There wasn't even a drop left. Chilled tofu wouldn't taste good without it. So I looked under their sink for the larger bottle of soy sauce they have. You sure know a lot about where they keep stuff. I've been to Rika-chan's house and cooked for them before. Rena cleared her throat, her face returning to a serious expression. Then, when I opened the cabinet, the big bottle of soy sauce wasn't there at all. It wasn't there? What does that mean? Everything I'm going to say from here on is just Rena's idea. So please listen until the end without saying anything. Last night, Satsuko was making dinner like normal. Rika-chan usually watched TV until the food was ready, so she was probably lying down watching a variety show or something. Satsuko put the tofu in the miso soup, and right when dinner was about to be ready, she noticed that they were out of soy sauce. So Rika-chan, who had nothing to do, brought the big bottle of soy sauce to a neighbor's house to borrow theirs. I don't really know my neighbors that well. Would people be willing to just give her soy sauce? Yeah, it's not all that uncommon in Hinamizawa. So Rika-chan rode her bike out to get some soy sauce. No matter how long Satsuko-chan waited though, Rika-chan didn't come back. So then Satoko-chan called up the house where Rika-chan was going. Would Rika happen to be imposing on you? Something like that. Then the other person must have replied with something like this. We have plenty of food here, so you should come too, Satoko-chan. Rika-chan has already eaten. I think that's how they called her out there. Satoko called Rika a few names in private and wrapped up the dinner she had made for them. She put it in the fridge so they could use it for breakfast and lunch the next day. Then Satoko got on her bike too, and headed for the house where Rika-chan was. Okay, but this is already pretty strange. You don't normally make so much food that you can give it to people who suddenly arrived at your house. A veteran housewife would never normally make so much food that she could feed 2 extra people. Could it have just been a coincidence that they made too much? It's still unthinkable. Rena flatly denied me. Since Rika-chan knew that Satsuko-chan had worked really hard to make dinner for them, didn't she? No matter what kind of food she was offered, she wouldn't let Satsuko-chan's dinner go to waste. This was all only circumstantial evidence and Rena's guesswork. Even so, it was all extremely convincing. It was the only ray of hope we had to topple this situation bereft of clues. Then, Rena, where did Rika-chan go to get soy sauce? That was the heart of it. It would have to be somewhere she'd be comfortable with asking for soy sauce, and somewhere Satoko wouldn't think it suspicious that she'd been invited for dinner. So, who was it? Rena slowly shook her head. That's all for Rena's guesses. These are all just ideas, okay? Keep them a secret from the police. What is there to hide? Even if only half of what you say is right, it should be a good clue for all this. Keiichi-kun, this all means suspecting someone from Inamizawa. We can't suspect anyone without a really good reason. I saw a few girls coming over to rinse out their bento boxes. Rena cut the conversation short there and returned to the classroom. I stayed there alone, my body bathed in the lively voices of the cicadas. Let's think about this. In my own way. Rena had barely any information to go on, and yet she'd reasoned out that much. So there should be something that only I, who knew far more than Rena did, could deduce. Oishi-san said this night too, but the incident was definitely occurring within Hinamizawa. Rena might not have wanted to believe it, but it's basically a given that the culprit is someone from the village. The trigger for everything was when the 4 of us trespassed in the forbidden storehouse. Somebody saw us going in there. For the culprits, breaking the taboo was a crime punishable by death. So that night, Tomitake-san and Takano-san were sacrificed. There were 2 left. Shion and myself. However, before the culprits bore their fangs on Shion and me, they went after the mayor, to whom Shion had confessed her sin. Next, they went for Rika-chan, to whom I'd confessed my sin. Then, what about Satoko? Just a stray bullet? By itself, Rika-chan being sacrificed after I'd told her everything was mortifying. But Satsuko, who was sacrificed for no reason, wasn't that all the more regrettable? Everything was my fault. Who would be the next to disappear? Would it be Shion and me next time? Why weren't the culprits going for Shion and me right away, though? If they had enough power to erase the mayor and Rika-chan, then why not just get rid of Shion and me? If they went for us, well, I wouldn't like it, but I could still tolerate it. What I couldn't forgive was them getting rid of those we'd confessed to. Now that I think of it, yesterday Shion said something alarming. She felt like someone was watching her. So then, was someone watching me as well? Strangely though, I hadn't felt anything like that until now. Even though I'm the root cause of everything, I had never once had that impression. Maybe that was simply because Shion was more cautious than me, and I was just careless. That's another story though. Let's get back on track. Why weren't the culprits going after Shion and me? I felt like that's where the key to this lay. Could it be? Was I making a big assumption that I shouldn't have been? I thought and thought, but couldn't come up with an answer. The one thing I understood was that I was a concerned party to this case, and that I had a duty to watch over it until everything got resolved. I heard the ring of the bell declaring the end of lunch break. Would somebody else disappear tonight? If nobody else did, then I wanted them to get rid of me tonight for sure. And then put an end to all of this. Shion's hysterical voice on the phone last night came back to mind. They planned to murder those close to us first, make us as miserable as possible, and only then would they kill us. My Butter-kun, lunch break is over. Go back to the classroom. At the principal's urging, I returned to the classroom, which was quiet as the streets at night. There were a lot of parents picking up their children after school. It was just like a kindergarten. The students whose parents didn't come went home as a group. We left school with everyone else, following the assigned route. Even while leaving, nobody said anything funny. They all looked like exhausted mountaineers silently marching through the mountains. As we went, one left, and then another, and in the end it was just Rena and me. I was supposed to escort Rena all the way to her house, but she declined. Will you be alright? It's not safe to go alone. It would be just as dangerous for you to go home by yourself after bringing me back, Keiichi-kun. It's still light out anyway. I'll be fine. I see. Then be careful, okay? Yeah. Huh? Isn't that a policeman? Rena pointed towards my house. There was a car stopped in front of it. From out of that car came Oishi-san. He must have been waiting for my return to ambush me. Oishi-san started walking over wearing that annoying grin. Rena, you should go. If you get involved with him, you'll be here for hours. But, what do the police want with you? With you? Rena's a good person. Even when I made a fuss of Arika-chan's disappearance, she never asked me why I did. She could have been suspecting me ever since then, and that would have been okay. Even so, she still hadn't asked me anything. She didn't try and pressure me into revealing the truth. I'm not the culprit. I know that. That said, I can't say that I'm totally uninvolved with this incident. Rena simply listened, smiling like she always did. Even though I had insinuated I was related to the incident, she didn't look at me as though she were looking at something dirty. I'll tell you next time. Okay, I'm looking forward to it. Get going, then. Rena gave me a slight bow and trotted away, leaving me alone with Oishi-san, who walked over. Hello. Welcome home, Maibara-san. Hello. It looks like your parents aren't here. My, was I in a bit of a spot. He came all the way to my house? I can only thank my good fortune that my parents were absent. Since neither of them was around at this hour, they would probably be back late. I think Dad got called out on business. I don't think he'll be back until later. I see. Well, that's convenient, I suppose. We can do this without giving your parents any strange ideas. Oishi-san pushed my back, prompting me to walk. It seems like he wanted me to get in the car. Are you taking me to the police station? I wasn't the culprit, but I was the cause of everything. It wouldn't be weird if you wanted to investigate me. That kind of gave me a resigned feeling. No, I just don't want to stand around talking. We can just talk in the car, that's all. Come now, don't be shy. He opened the back door and urged me inside. If I got in, I wouldn't have a very easy time getting out. If I said no, however, then this man might really handcuff me and take me away. I couldn't refuse. I could only accept in good grace. The inside of the car had been cooled too much by the air conditioner, and there was a rusty smell coming from the filter, which must have been cleaned only rarely. Oh, is it too cold? I'll turn the car off. He turned off the engine and it suddenly became quiet, and the voices of the Higurashi, with all their cool loneliness, snuck inside. Quack, 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 quack. It sounded to me like a chorus of voices, lamenting my exorbitant punishment for having harbored such foolish curiosity. For a few moments, while listening to those voices, I myself lamented the days that had been twisted and distorted since that night. Oishi-san, as if waiting for me to voluntarily begin talking, lit a cigarette and listened to the Higurashi. The silence became deafening, and I was the one who folded first. How is the investigation going? The investigation? Of what? There have been so many. Which do you mean? All of them. Well, alright then. They're officially secret investigations, and we're under a media blackout, but I'll let you in on them. Then, shall we start from the first incident? The freak deaths of Tomitake-san and Takano-san on the night of Watanagashi. On this one, embarrassingly enough, we haven't made any progress at all. First of all, Tomitake-san. There are indications on his body that he was assaulted by a group of people, but we have no explanation for him clawing out his own throat and dying. We suspect an overdose from a stimulant or something, but we didn't detect anything. What about Takano-san? The same. We're in the dark. Autopsies for those who are burned to death are real tough. We believe she was doused in gasoline after she was strangled. That one falls under the Gifu Prefecture's police department. They haven't been very cooperative, even though it happened in our territory. Oh, that's not really relevant, though. So the police didn't know anything other than the fact that the victims died inexplicably. Nonetheless, the times when the incidents occurred have been generally placed right after the festival ended. It's a bit uncertain in Takano-san's case, but the likely prospect is that she was murdered at about the same time as Tomitake-san, then dumped in the mountains in Gifu. Why would they bring a dead body all the way to the mountains? They should have just brought Tomitake-san out there too. Oh my Maibara-san, you're quite sharp, you know that? Of course, I do believe that it's something we need to be attentive of. There are a bunch of other suspicious things, but this is about all I can tell you at this point. How about the mayor? Have there been any clues? Having exhausted that topic, I changed the subject, otherwise he might turn the conversation on me. We investigated his movements on the day he disappeared. We didn't find anything that could provide any clues, but I'll tell you about it anyway. The mayor, Kichiro Kimiyoshi. Apparently he was suffering from severe hemorrhoids. People who've lived a long time have an unusual amount of pride. So the mayor hadn't been telling anyone that he was going to a proctologist at a certain university hospital in Shishibone. On the day he disappeared, he had an appointment for a checkup, so he went out first thing in the morning. Even I knew that big hospitals, like university hospitals, had a really long waiting time. Apparently, people would get in line hours beforehand, even if they had an appointment. His exam ended at 1 p.m. After that, he ate a light meal in the hospital restaurant and passed the time reading a magazine. We know this because of a receipt we found in his wallet at his house. There was nothing suspicious at all about that. That day, he had planned to go to a meeting in the assembly hall in the evening. He was supposed to return home with plenty of time to spare, but while he was on the train coming back, there was an accident. Seems it delayed him a bit, and he only got back to his house right before the meeting was scheduled to start. His family witnessed a very hectic mayor leaving to go to the assembly hall at the shrine. What was the meeting about? He disappeared on his way back home, right? The three families and the essential members of the town assembly were at the meeting. We think they were discussing how to deal with the serial freak death incidents that had happened again this year. So then, on his way home, The old man who had treated Shion like his own daughter. He was a dependable person who would encourage Shion whenever she felt pressured by anxiety, and yet, Shion's painful voice struck me right in the heart. Hmm? Huh? What's the matter? I was taken aback by how strange my own voice sounded. What was it that just surprised me? I squeezed my head with my hands to try and drag back out what I had only realized for a split second. Remember, Keiji Maibara. You just realized something. Something important. The night of Watanagashi. That was when everything started. That night, Takano-san and Tomitake-san died. The next morning, word of the incident had spread throughout Hinamizawa. They planned to talk about it during the evening meeting. The mayor, however, had an appointment at the hospital, and as planned, he went there without telling his family. He got a checkup at the hospital, ate something, and then there was an unexpected delay on his train ride back. When he returned, the meeting was already about to start. The mayor changed clothes, got on his bicycle, and hurried to the assembly hall at the shrine as fast as he could. From when he heard about the incident on the night of Watanagashi until when he showed up at the assembly hall, everything he was doing that day was done in secret. During that time, nobody found out that he went to the hospital alone, he ate alone, and he got on the train alone. That all meant he had absolutely no contact with anyone else. You couldn't have even called him on the phone. Okay, but what does that mean, Keiji Maibara? Why does that matter, Keiji Maibara? Kei-chan, what should I do? What's wrong? Tell me. We're not keeping secrets from each other, right? Old man Kimiyoshi, I told him everything. I told him everything. I told old man Kimiyoshi everything. That night, I told the mayor that we snuck into the ritual storehouse. Also that someone saw us and was out to get us. Right. What then? Old man Kimiyoshi didn't get angry. He smiled and then told me if I was properly sorry about it, there was no way I'd be demoned away. He was really smiling, and he told me to leave it to him. Sweat burst out of my body like bullets. They became one long strand and slid down my forehead to my nose, and fell. So then, what does it mean? Hey, Keiji Maibara, no more playing dumb. When did she tell him? Shion said she learned of the incident from a phone call her father had made that morning. The mayor had left the house first thing in the morning for his appointment at the hospital. He didn't tell anybody where he was going. Nobody knew about him going to the university hospital. Furthermore, his train ride back to his house was delayed by an accident. As soon as he got home, he rushed out to the assembly hall. Then the meeting at the assembly hall began and continued until it was dark out. Then everyone left. Nobody saw him after the meeting was over. He just disappeared. Which meant... Maibara-san, are you alright? If you're too hot, I can turn on the air conditioner, Another part of me was messing with my thoughts, demanding that I not think any further than that. My head was pounding violently, and the fluids packed inside it all blended together until nothing made sense. It was just about to settle, yet it had been smashed and melted in the blink of an eye, no longer able to retain its shape. Maibara-san, are you in there? Yeah. Oishi-san lit another cigarette. There was yet another cigarette butt placed in the ashtray. Was it displaying the passage of time? Had my thoughts been frozen over for that long? I've tried to tell you everything I know. In return, feel free to tell me anything you want, Maibara-san. My mind had become a gigantic oozing mess. My brain felt like it had been totally minced by the blades of a blender, and I couldn't think. Now, don't clam up again. If there are any misunderstandings, I'd like to clear them up first. I don't think you're the culprit here or anything. Oishi-san gave his best attempt at an adult smile. I know the four of you snuck into the ritual storehouse that night. Everyone in the village heard rumors about it by the next day. That in itself means we should take you in for trespassing, but that isn't the problem. It's what was inside. What was inside that made people who snuck in there end up as sacrifices? There wasn't anything. As soon as I said it, I regretted confirming my presence there, but I knew it didn't matter anymore. Was there really nothing in there? I mean, everyone who went in is being sacrificed one by one, you know? Even the mayor and Rika-san, who switched the lock on the door, were sacrificed. What was inside that could have caused such terrible things to happen? I was far too tired of keeping quiet about this. Perhaps that was Oishi-san's goal all along, but again, that didn't matter anymore. There were just a lot of torture devices that were used a long time ago. I looked around at them with everyone. Was that really all? That was really all. There was nothing terrible in there that would make you keep silent? Like a pile of psychoactive drugs? Maybe a secret poppy workshop? Perhaps there were mountains of Soviet or Chinese handguns. There weren't any suspicious wooden boxes or containers packed in there? There was nothing as exaggerated as what Oishi-san was hoping for, but I felt like, in a way, there were plenty of terrible things hidden in there. From the perspective of someone who viewed this storehouse as sacred, whether or not I thought I had seen some crazy things didn't matter in the slightest. The four of us broke the taboo. Punish us. That should have been what happened. We put in a request for a search warrant, thinking that there might have been some secrets hidden in that storehouse. It's been the sabotage of the century. They said it would be an insult to religious figures, and something about the right to free religion in the Constitution. Jeez. That's why I really didn't have any other recourse but to ask you, since you went in there. There really was just old, rusty, dusty torture equipment. Nothing else stood out. Then Tomitake-san and Takano-san were only killed as punishment for having broken the taboo? I didn't have an answer for the only part. I suppose I won't bother hiding it anymore. You're the only one to escape harm so far. Everyone but you has disappeared, and yet you alone are safe. What's the difference between you and them that would protect you but bring harm to the others? That's what I want to know. There was something wrong with what Oishi-san was saying. You alone? You alone. What? Wait a second. What do you mean by you alone? I'm saying that you alone have been left alive, right? Out of the four people who tiptoed into the storehouse for ritual implements, I mean. The only one left alive? Hold on. Shion was still... Jiro Tomitake-san and Mio Takano-san died that night, and Shion Sonozaki disappeared the next day. Only you are still safe and sound at this point. Why only you? I'm saying that's what I want to know. Shion disappeared? That's impossible. I unintentionally raised my voice, but I didn't care about that. Tomitake-san died, Takano-san died, and Shion disappeared? When did she disappear? What is this guy talking about? Oh, well now, I thought you were long since aware of this. This is the first I've heard of it. Shion disappeared? When? Well, going back a bit, she disappeared the day after Watanagashi. Going back a bit? Stop saying stuff I don't understand. Shion Sonozaki spends the night at relatives' houses depending on her mood on any given day, so no one thought much of not knowing where she was. She frequently takes days off from school, too. Her teacher has been pretty troubled by it. I didn't ask about any of that. I'm asking you when Shion disappeared. I told you it was the day after Watanagashi. The fluids in my body all reversed direction. I lost my sense of balance, and everything I could see started to warp and twist out of shape. I simply couldn't endure it. Hang on. Shion had already disappeared? Then... That night? That call? That phone call? Who was that? She called me every night. She encouraged me. We vowed that we would do our best to live on and not be erased. Yes, that should have been a phone call with Shion. Should have been a phone call with Shion. Should have been a phone call with Shion. She took breaks from class like it was nothing, and her family wouldn't listen when I told them, so I didn't bother calling the school in the end. So it ended up taking quite a while before we realized she disappeared. I felt a stabbing pain like needles were being pushed into every pore of my body. It started on my back and began spreading throughout the rest of me. When it had completely covered the surface of my skin, it began to worm its way inside my stomach as well. Don't you remember? We talked at the library the day after Watanagashi. Shion-san was there then. That was the last we saw of her. No one knows where she's been since. That can't be. That day, Oishi-san had only caught me, and Shion bounded away, lying that she needed to go to work. Didn't she call me that night? Her job was at a restaurant called Angel Mort, right? She hadn't been there since that day. She's been completely absent ever since. The person at the restaurant couldn't get in touch with her. He was really worried. That can't be. It can't be. It's only circumstantial evidence, but after she left us at the library, but before she made it to work, I think it's appropriate to consider her having disappeared during that time. Right after Shion ran away without me? It seems that you didn't know. Maybe if you had said something earlier, this would have gone more quickly. Now you understand, right? You're the only one left. You're the only survivor of the 4 who slipped into the ritual storehouse. It couldn't be. It just couldn't be. If something else happens, it would happen to you. I need you to understand that, Maibara-san. It can't be. It can't be. It can't be. Shion had already disappeared? That couldn't be. It couldn't be. I had talked to her the day before yesterday. I talked to her last night. She was going to call me again today. That was Shion on the phone. Shion on the phone. It was from Shion, from Shion. Shion has long since disappeared. Next will be you. Then, who was on the phone those past nights? Who was on the phone those past nights? Who was on the phone those past nights? It can't be! I lay down on the couch and stayed there dazed for a while. My mind was completely blank. I couldn't think about anything for more than a few seconds. There was a note in my house saying that Mom and Dad would be home late and that I should have some ramen or something for dinner. I could make it whenever I got hungry, but I had no appetite, so I just stared blankly at the ceiling without eating anything. The hands of the clock were already pointing at 10. Would I get another phone call like that today? Even though Shion had already disappeared. Would she still call me? Where were they coming from, and who were they? The more I thought about it, the more I started to tremble. I even thought about just disconnecting the phone line. If I had been thinking a little less logically, I really would have done it too. Hold on, Keiichi Maibara. Oishi-san admitted it himself, didn't he? That Shion went missing a lot? Couldn't she have just gone to a relative's that Oishi-san didn't know about and have been there ever since? Shion and I were both being targeted by somebody, so it wouldn't be strange to think she went somewhere she usually didn't in order to hide. That must be why Oishi-san couldn't locate her, and why he labeled her a disappearance. Yeah, that had to be it. Shion hadn't disappeared at all. Then my right hand moved of its own volition and slapped me on the cheek. Its cold sting let me calm down a little. Don't just convince yourself of the most convenient possibility, Keiichi Maibara. I knew I didn't want to admit she had disappeared. Admitting it would mean that something terrifying was definitely happening. I just needed to figure out whether Shion was the one on the phone or not. Would I ask her if she was actually Shion? That seemed like an incredibly absurd thing to do. Still, don't run from this, Keiichi. If the person on the other end still believed that I thought she was Shion, then that gave me a tiny advantage. Casually, completely casually, I would listen to what she had to say and fend her off. I would tear the skin off the monster. It would definitely be really scary for me. However, as the last survivor of the people who went into the storehouse that night, this was my duty to perform. Still, then who would call me and pretend to be Shion? I may have only heard her over the phone, but her voice shouldn't be that easy to replicate. That was definitely Shion's voice. It sounded just like her. It could have only been Shion. There was someone though, wasn't there? Someone who sounded just like Shion. Mion. Mion? Who else could have done this? At this point, seriously, after all this time, all those little things that didn't quite make sense about Mion until now overwhelmed my mind. Like being questioned about sneaking into the ritual storehouse and how she shook the ladder while spouting curses. Who else could have? Why though? Why would Mion? I thought back to the things about the Sonozaki family that I had heard from Oishi-san and Shion. Mion was always entangled in the incidents, in a position where she was omnipotent. Some of that information included things that Shion had told me after she disappeared. I madly scratched at my head. Courage. Give me the courage. Just a little bit of courage to pick up the phone. I know it will ring tonight. It would be so easy to run away. That, though, would be the same as making it easy for them to erase me. I cannot run. I must stand up and face it. After all, the next sacrifice would definitely be me. I was sure Shion would use tricky words to try and trap me. Be careful, be careful. I'm scared, I'm scared, I'm scared. I don't want to do this, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do this. At that point, it rang. The phone rang, and I didn't know where the call was coming from. Shion had disappeared. Disappeared a long time ago. Disappeared the night after Watanagashi. Yet, until today, she had been calling me like nothing happened. Now again, tonight. The people that had disappeared, their corpses simply haven't been found. I really didn't think they were alive. So if it really was Shion on the other end, then did that mean she was calling me from another world? Of course, that couldn't be. A living being was calling me, pretending to be Shion. Shion was long gone, and yet as though she were alive and well. The phone continued its incessant ringing. I didn't want to pick it up if I didn't have to. I had just concluded, though, that not doing so wouldn't solve anything. Then, what would I do after I answered it? Would I immediately declare she wasn't Shion and ask who she was? Alternatively, would I pretend I was still fooled and try to grab her by the tail? That would probably be the safest thing to do. What I was most afraid of was what the person on the phone would do when she realized I knew she wasn't Shion. However, as long as I continued to let her think I was fooled, she wouldn't do anything extreme, right? If I just make sure to be careful, that should be the safest option. I made up my mind. I'll answer the phone. Once I do that, I'll talk to her as if nothing happened. That wasn't all I'd do this time, though. I'd scope her out. Who was she? What was she thinking? And what was she after? Why was she doing this? Was she really the one who killed Tomitake-san and Takano-san? What happened to the mayor? What happened to Rika-chan and Satoko? I reached out for the receiver, my arm trembling. There were too many things I wanted to know, too many things I wanted to ask. I was scared. I should start by picking up the phone. Pick it up, Keiichi. Pick it up, Keiichi. Hello? Oh, how relieved I would have been if it hadn't been a call from Shion. Kei-chan, it's me. It's Shion. My momentary, convenient, and above all fleeting prediction was ripped into 1,000 pieces. I couldn't help shaking at this point. Get ready for this. You took a long time to pick up. I thought you weren't home, and I was about to hang up. Sorry. I was just in the bath. Did your family not pick up for you? Could your parents be out right now, Kei-chan? I failed. I let her in on a fatal piece of information that I was currently the only one at my house. Well, no. They're not really. Anyway. Have you heard about Rika-chan and Satoko? No. What happened after that? Were they found? Nah. They weren't found. Kei-chan, please don't lose hope. If Oishi-san hadn't let me know, then I might have allowed myself to shed a tear or two at Shion's considerate words. Instead, now that it had come to this, I couldn't take her words at face value. This person on the other end of the receiver, the more perfect as Shion they were, the more my blood curdled in fear. Rika-chan and Satoko, they were kidnapped, weren't they? Yes. I don't think there's much doubt. Just how cruel and grave a meaning did those words hold? Their weight astonished me, and then a moment later, I was overcome with numbness and felt like I would pass out. I had asked if Rika-chan and Satoko had been kidnapped. Shion, in turn, had answered that there wasn't much doubt. That cruel meaning behind her words. Rika-chan and Satoko were, no, I'm sorry. About the mayor, what do you think happened after he was kidnapped? Do you think he's still alive? What happened to Rika-chan and Satoko after they were kidnapped? That's what I wanted to ask, but I frantically caught myself. What if she had given that question a terrifying response, in such a way to sound like it had nothing to do with her? I was scared of that, so I immediately brought up the mayor. That said, however much I talked about the mayor, I think he was killed. Hey, wait. That was quick. I think it must be really hard to kidnap someone and keep them like they are. As long as they're not hostages, it would be most practical to kill them once you were done with them. The world started to bend so much I almost lost my balance. The scenery in my eyes whirled around and around like the hands of a clock, and tried to swallow me whole from below. I frantically put a hand on the wall to support myself. A moment later, a severe nausea welled up within me. How was she saying such things so lightly? Kill them so readily? I mean, what's a human life or two anyway? It's a horrible thing, but I think that's probably what happened. If the mayor was killed, then did that mean the same thing happened to Rika-chan and Satoko? No, that couldn't. They weren't some random old man. It was Rika-chan. It was Satoko. They couldn't kill them so readily. It's probably better to think that Rika-chan and Satoko-chan ended up the same way. Wah! Those were the words I wanted to hear the least, and I fought them back with a scream of my own. Even though it wouldn't change anything, I still couldn't help but scream. This time, the tears flowed. I'd been confronted with the most horrific outcome that I'd been trying to avoid considering ever since last night, and I cried. There was no longer any doubt that it was my fault. I killed them. I killed Rika-chan and Satoko. I succumbed to the weakness of my own heart and confessed everything to Rika-chan. That's why they were killed. That meant I killed them. When Rika-chan looked at me with those innocent eyes, if only I hadn't given in. Even my voice gave out, and yet still, I cried. And cried. Kei-chan, please, just try and calm down. Rika-chan and Satoko, they've been killed. We couldn't even find their remains. I would never be allowed to even apologize to their faces. If that was to be my punishment, then how brutal a punishment it was. I think Shion tried to comfort me, but I didn't hear any of it. What are you going to gain by doing that? They're definitely going to target you and me next. Please, I'm asking you, get a hold of yourself. Please, please. Shion was shouting, imploring me with a voice that sounded like tears were in her eyes. However, I was coming to hate the sound of that voice more and more. This Shion killed them. I had no doubts that this person killed them. Why? 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 Why kidnap someone and then kill them? Screw curses. Are people's lives really that cheap? Erasing them and killing them without a second thought like this? You're right. You're absolutely right. It would take a demon. I felt like crushing the receiver in my hand. How long did this person plan on acting like it was someone else's problem? There was magma in the pit of my stomach, and it felt like it was going to erupt at any moment. Hey, Shion, please, tell me. Why did Hinamizawa start needing someone to die on the night of Watanagashi? That's what I'd like to know. The fighting of the dam project is already over and done with. Haven't enough people been cursed already? Why is it? Why? If there's a reason, then say it now. I was incoherent at this point. My emotions had broken through the dam inside of me, rushing forth, and I couldn't stop them. These were not simple questions. This was an interrogation. Shion herself hadn't realized it yet. It was just too funny. It was so funny that I couldn't stop crying. I understand how you feel, Kei-chan. I really do. The dam wars ended a long time ago. Yet murders and disappearances keep happening every year under the guise of Oyashiro-sama's curse. Why? Why is it happening? Some of them had nothing to do with this, and some of them didn't deserve to be cursed. So why? Why? That's what I'm asking you! I want to know that as much as anyone. Both our ragged breaths could be heard over the phone. Listen, Oyashiro-sama's curse never existed. It's too unrealistic. Just like you said, someone in the village is using the grand name of Oyashiro-sama's curse as a justification for continuing these murders and disappearances every Watanagashi. They were cunning. They'd been using the curse as a convenient tool and made a system where they would get rid of 2 enemies in the village every year. And this year, that system killed Takano-san and Tometake-san. Then why wasn't that enough? Why did the mayor and Rika-chan and Satoko have to get killed too? I don't give a shit about the past. The only thing I care about is why Rika-chan and Satoko needed to be killed. Why is that? I didn't say a word to Satoko, you know? Why even her? Why? A silence fell between us. Shion didn't answer for a while. Kei-chan, please, stop being mean. Hick. A sob. Was Shion crying? I don't have any idea what's going on either. Everything changed when we went into the ritual storehouse that night. It was the same for me. As I listened to Shion's bitter weeping, I could feel my agitation subsiding. When I heard that Takano-san and Tometake-san had been killed that night, I doubted my ears. Then I realized it instantly. I realized what sort of position I was in now. The 4 of us snuck in there. Kei-chan, you and I won't be so conveniently forgiven. When I thought about that, it made my chest so tight, it was so terrifying. You know that feeling, Kei-chan, don't you? There was nothing fake about her words. She'd even understood how I felt. That's why I confessed everything to old man Kimiyoshi. All of us entered the forbidden storehouse. It was just a little bit of fun. We knew we shouldn't have done it, but it really had been just for fun. It was only a bit of exploration, that was all. Takano-san and Tomitake-san, who went in with us, were killed shortly afterward. They met such miserable ends. Since that day, I've been living in fear of when I would be attacked. There was nobody except old man Kimiyoshi who would help me. So I asked him to save me. Old man Kimiyoshi, he wasn't mad. He smiled and said, if you're really sorry, Shion-chan, then you'd never be demoned away. He really did smile at me and told me to leave it to him. Sob. Shion cried bitterly, recalling the beloved mayor's death. It was such a sad voice that none who heard it could prevent it from twisting their hearts. Again, did I let my emotions take over and go off at her? Shion was in the same situation as me. She should have been my one and only comrade. Thump. My heart pounded. My other self, deep within my mind, whispered to me. Don't forget, Keiichi Maibara. Don't forget about the mayor, on the morning after Watanagashi. He was told of Takano-san and Tomitake-san's deaths over the phone and committed to a meeting that evening. He went to a hospital appointment. He didn't tell his family. He'd only made it back just in time for the meeting. He went straight to the assembly hall. That's what Oishi-san said. When did you let the mayor know? Hic. Huh? I'm sorry, Shion. It must seem like I'm kicking you while you're down, but... Shion, you told him, right? You told old man Kimiyoshi, the mayor? Yes. Hic. When did you let him know? Huh? I began to get scared of saying it aloud after hearing her sad voice. I wasn't saying it was contradictory, though. Besides, if there was a contradiction, then I wanted Shion to explain it to me. Did you know that the mayor had a severe case of hemorrhoids and had gone to the hospital for treatment? Kei-chan? What does that have to... Please answer me. If you didn't know, then just say so. There was a momentary silence. Then, after stammering a few times, she replied, I knew that he had hemorrhoids. It looked like sitting down was really hard for him. He was going to the hospital. You know which hospital, right? I'm sorry, I don't know that much, but... Kei-chan, what does that have to do with... Shion didn't know what hospital the mayor went to. That meant it was impossible for her to have gone all the way to the hospital to confess everything. Since she didn't know his destination, then she obviously couldn't have seen him on the train either. If there was any other chance for her to contact him, it would have been after he came to Hinamizawa. The train, however, had been delayed, and he only got back right before the meeting was about to start. He didn't have time. There wouldn't have been enough time for him to listen to Shion spill the beans. I want to ask you straight. Shion, when did you tell the mayor about everything? When and where? Your answer doesn't have to be precise, but please give me one. Kei-chan, why are you asking that? Hic. Her sob pierced into my ears. I was taken by the illusion that I was bullying her. Even so, I'll say it. If I'm wrong, then please correct me. Please prove to me that you're the real Shion. It was impossible. The day the mayor disappeared, from dawn until he vanished, there was no opportunity for you to contact him. Huh? That's... The mayor left first thing in the morning for his examination at the university hospital all by himself, without telling anyone. Shion, you just said you don't know what hospital he went to, so you couldn't have contacted the mayor until he got back. Isn't that right? Hic. His train back was delayed by an accident, and he didn't return to his house until the meeting was about to start. So there was no time for you to have told him before the meeting started either. I heard Shion repeating her weak sobs. That sort of feminine voice automatically ripped into my heart. It was so painful for me to say it. Shion, did you go to the meeting too? Did you attend it and tell him there? If you didn't, then there wouldn't have been any time left. After the meeting was over, the mayor disappeared on his way home. Shion went to the meeting, didn't she? Did she or didn't she? The question was so simple to answer, but she didn't give me an immediate response. Actually, with the meeting, You didn't even go to the part-time job you said you went to that day. I'll say it more directly. You haven't been seen since we were at the library together. Kei-chan, Shion Sonozaki disappeared the day after Watanagashi. The other end fell silent as the grave. It was so quiet that it was like the phone cord had been cut. I couldn't sense anyone there. Oishi-san says you've been missing. Despite that, you've been calling me every night like this, haven't you? Hic, 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 hic. Shion's sobs were torturing me. Still, I'm pretty sure I haven't said anything wrong. Please, Shion. If something I said was wrong, please say so. Shion, I'm begging you. Hic, hic, hic. Shion, there's no way you could have seen the mayor, but if you did see him... If Shion ever did have the chance to meet with the mayor on that day, then that meant... Then you saw him after the meeting. In other words, it could only have been right before he disappeared, or else afterward. Hic, hic, huh. Beep, went the dial tone. I stood there dazed for a while until I realized she had hung up on me. Spooky. Oh, that's the end of chapter 11. We have From the Scrapbook 11 and At the Suzu Mahjong Parlor. That was, I was not expecting the jump scare, I'm not gonna lie. Anyway, let's read the new tips and then we will end the episode. Like, I almost shouted when that jump scare happened. Anyway, From the Scrapbook 11. The problem with twins. This is not limited to just Hinamizawa, but in Onigafuji village especially, the three families detested giving birth to twins as successors. The long-term dictatorship built on the precarious balance of the three families must have feared collapsing under the weight of internal strife from things like family quarrels. According to the literature, if twins were born, then they had to be culled. With that, the very fact that both the Sonozaki family successor, Mion Sonozaki, and her twin, Shion, are alive is in itself deeply interesting. Perhaps the current leader, Oryu, is sympathetic? Of course, the twins were not cared for equally, and as the heir, Mion receives special treatment. From what I've heard, despite the two of them looking exactly the same on the outside, the talent lies solely with Mion. My own observations of the two of them don't leave me with that impression. Tradition dictates that the leader of the Sonozaki family is said to inherit a demon, and they tattoo a magnificent one onto his or her back. In accordance with the tradition, there is an extremely high possibility Mion has such a tattoo on her back. From what I've heard, there is apparently a magnificent demon tattooed on Oryu's back as well. Then, I wonder what sort of tattoo belongs to the heir, Mion. I really want to see her back. That seems kind of important. At the Suzu Mahjong Parlor. Reserved for the day, Suzu Mahjong Parlor. Clatter-clack. Hey, Akura-chan, you're the last one here. All the youngsters are here already. Excuse me, miss. Oishi handed over a convenience store bag with a carton of cigarettes in it to the old lady who owned the Mahjong Parlor, and she shrewdly made herself scarce. She was used to this by now. Oishi-san, good work today. What, were you all earnestly waiting for me? You could have just done 3-player. Everyone sitting at the mahjong tables in the small parlor were Oishi's subordinates, but there were no tiles laid out anywhere. Everyone, I'd like to thank you for your days of investigation without sleep. Thank you. Energetic responses filled the parlor. Already, it had lost the atmosphere of a place of entertainment. The situation is not looking good. The chief appears to have backed down due to Congressman Sonozaki's threats. In the coming days, we'll hand off Takano's murder to the Gifu police, and give the missing person cases of the disappearance of the mayor and the others to the community division. That damn upstart chief. The veterans in the room cursed him. All of our requests for warrants were turned down as well. I've even been told by our section chief not to go anywhere near the Sonozaki house. We're certainly in a bind, that we are. Incidentally, it looks like I'll be getting orders soon to go to training at the Metropolitan Police Department starting next week. After that, I've even been told to take a paid vacation in Izu. Well, I suppose that ain't bad. He heard a few dry laughs. It wasn't anything to laugh about, but that was all they could do. This always happens, but incidents are a lot like locking your keys in the car. The keys you need to unlock the door are always locked inside. For cars, you call JAF and they'll pry open your door. For incidents, Kuma-chan, show the map. Kumatani flipped over the whiteboard. On the back was a map of the Sonozaki premises made with magnets. Now, I've been doing this job for a long time. I've got a lot of faith in my gut, but this could be the one time it was wrong, no? Anyone worried about their retirement money has until the count of 10 to get out of here. Oishi began to count to 10, and everyone counted along with him. It was their famous 10-count resolution. 9, 10. No one's leaving. None of you love your families too much, is that it? Wah ha ha ha. Everybody laughed uproariously, cheering things up. I want everyone to go over their materials. Memorize the locations and blind spots of all the security cameras. Kuma-chan, you'll stand by in the command car. If something happens, you'll switch with me and take over. Komiyama-kun will head up Infiltration Team A. Atsushi-kun will lead Team B. Observation teams will be set up at points 1 through 8. Banshi-kun, you're responsible for keeping a strict timetable. Control your rotation so HQ doesn't get wise. Now, the team on standby has the most important job, alright? If the section chief asks where I am, play dumb. I'll handle escorting our guest. I'll probably take him to the venue, so wait patiently, everyone. Wonder if he'll cave. Keiji Maibara, that is. From what I've seen, we're set for tomorrow or the day after in that regard. It'll be easy. So it seems like they want Keiji to go to the Somozaki house, and they're gonna raid it or something? I wonder why, though. Anyway, that's going to be it for Chapter 11. I do hope you enjoyed. If you did, make sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. I'm really excited to see how the chapter is going to end. And I really was not expecting that jump scare either. It really got me. Anyway, that's all from me. You all have a good day, and I will see you all in the next episode. Goodbye.